What if everything you know about Buddhism and Hinduism is built on a lie? I'm Matt from Buddha's Wisdom, and today we're exploring a religious controversy so explosive, it threatens to rewrite the history of Eastern spirituality. Imagine this. Buddha, the enlightened sage who founded one of the world's great religions, might be a Hindu god in disguise. You heard that right. Some Hindus claim Buddha was an avatar of Vishnu, sent to Earth as part of a divine plan. But here's where it gets wild. Buddhists are fighting back hard. They're saying this claim isn't divine revelation, it's a spiritual hijacking. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to unravel this mystery that's dividing millions. You'll hear mind-blowing arguments from both sides. You'll discover ancient texts that hint at hidden truths. And you'll learn about a shocking theory that could turn this whole debate upside down. By the end of this video, you'll question everything you thought you knew about these two major world religions. Brace yourselves for a journey into the heart of Eastern spirituality. Before we jump in, I want to emphasize that our goal is to explore and educate, not to offend or disrespect any religious beliefs. We're tackling complex historical and philosophical questions, and we acknowledge the deep, personal significance these matters hold for many. This video aims to present various perspectives for educational purposes, encouraging open-minded discussion and mutual understanding. Now, before we plunge into the heart of this religious firestorm, we need to understand the players in this cosmic drama. On one side, we have Hinduism, ancient, complex, with a pantheon of gods that would make the Greek Olympians look like a small family gathering. At its core stands Vishnu, the preserver, taking on various forms to maintain cosmic order. On the other side, Buddhism emerges as a radical departure from Hindu traditions. Founded by Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha, it rejects the very idea of a supreme deity. Instead, it offers a path to enlightenment through personal effort and wisdom. These two spiritual titans have coexisted for millennia, shaping the beliefs of billions. For instance, in the ancient city of Varanasi, you can find both the Kashi Vishwanath temple, one of the most sacred Hindu sites, and Sarnath, where Buddha gave his first sermon just a few miles apart. This physical proximity mirrors the complex spiritual intertwining we're about to explore. They've influenced each other, clashed, and at times, even merged. But beneath this uneasy coexistence lies a controversy that threatens to upend our understanding of both faiths. Picture this. A Hindu text casually mentioning Buddha as one of Vishnu's avatars. It's like finding out Superman and Batman are the same person. This seemingly innocuous claim ignites a philosophical powder keg. Hindus see it as a natural inclusion of a great teacher. Buddhists? They view it as a fundamental misunderstanding, or worse, a deliberate distortion, of their founder's identity and teachings. The stakes? Nothing less than the very foundations of these two world religions. If Buddha is indeed an avatar of Vishnu, it reshapes Buddhism as we know it. If he's not, it calls into question centuries of Hindu tradition. Either way, millions of believers are caught in the crossfire of this spiritual showdown. Now let's drop the Hindu bombshell that's been shaking the foundations of Eastern religion. Some Hindu traditions boldly claim Buddha as the 9th avatar of Vishnu. This isn't some obscure theory cooked up in a dusty corner of academia. We're talking about a belief held by millions of Hindus worldwide. The Bhagavata Purana, a sacred Hindu text, lists Buddha among Vishnu's incarnations. It explicitly states, "In the beginning of Kali Yuga, the Lord will appear as Lord Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the province of Gaya, just for the purpose of deluding those atheists." It describes him as a divine being who appeared to delude those unworthy of Vedic rituals. Think about the implications. This ancient text essentially says Buddha's entire mission was part of Vishnu's grand plan. But it doesn't stop there. Some Hindu scholars argue Buddha's teachings align perfectly with Vishnu's role as the preserver of Dharma. They point to Buddha's emphasis on compassion and his efforts to reform harmful practices. In their eyes, Buddha wasn't rebelling against Hinduism. He was fulfilling his divine duty as Vishnu's avatar. This perspective turns the entire narrative of Buddhism on its head. It suggests Buddha's rejection of the caste system and Vedic rituals wasn't a break from Hinduism, but a purification of it. It paints Buddha not as the founder of a new religion, but as a Hindu reformer sent by Vishnu himself. The evidence they present is compelling. They highlight philosophical similarities between Buddhism and certain schools of Hindu thought. They point to shared concepts like karma and rebirth. Some even argue that Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path is a refined version of Hindu ethical teachings. Make no mistake, this claim isn't a peace offering. It's a theological power move that threatens to absorb Buddhism back into the Hindu fold. And as you might expect, Buddhists aren't taking this lying down. But Buddhism isn't about to roll over and let its founder be claimed by Hinduism. The Buddhist community has come out swinging, and their counter-arguments pack a serious punch. First and foremost, Buddhists point to the fundamental teachings of the Buddha himself. They often cite Buddha's own words from the Digha Nikaya. "I am not a god or any kind of divine being. I am a human being who has found the way to enlightenment." In numerous sutras, Buddha explicitly rejected the idea of a supreme creator god. He taught that the universe operates on natural laws, not divine will. For Buddhists, the very notion of Buddha as an avatar of Vishnu contradicts the core of their doctrine. Buddhist scholars argue that the concept of Buddha as Vishnu's avatar is a later Hindu invention, absent from early Buddhist texts. They see it as an attempt to undermine Buddhism's distinct identity and reabsorb it into Hinduism. It's not interfaith dialogue they're seeing, it's spiritual colonization. Moreover, Buddhists emphasize the historical Buddha's human origins. Siddhartha Gautama was born a prince, struggled with existential questions, and achieved enlightenment through his own efforts. This narrative of human potential is central to Buddhist philosophy. Claiming Buddha as a divine avatar, they argue, robs his story of its power and relevance to ordinary people. The Buddhist pushback goes beyond philosophical arguments. They're calling out what they see as a pattern of Hindu appropriation of Buddhist sites and symbols. From Bodh Gaya to Buddha statues in Hindu temples, Buddhists are reclaiming their cultural and spiritual heritage. In 2013, the Global Buddhist Conference in New Delhi saw heated debates when some Hindu speakers referred to Buddha as a Hindu reformer. Buddhist delegates walked out in protest, showing how this controversy plays out in real-world interfaith dialogues. Some Buddhist leaders have gone as far as to suggest that the avatar claim is a form of spiritual aggression. They argue it's part of a broader attempt to erase Buddhism's distinct identity in its land of origin. For them, this isn't about religious harmony, it's about survival. The Buddhist response turns this controversy into a battle for the very soul of their religion. It's not a fight they're planning to lose. Now hold on to your seats, because we're about to throw a historical plot twist into this religious showdown. The roots of this controversy run deeper and darker than you might imagine. Cast your mind back to ancient India, around 500 BCE. Buddhism erupts onto the scene, challenging the established Hindu order. It rejects the caste system, questions the authority of the Vedas, and offers a path to enlightenment open to all. Suddenly, Hinduism faces its first major ideological rival on home turf. Fast forward a few centuries. Buddhism is spreading like wildfire across the subcontinent and beyond. Hindu temples are being abandoned. The social hierarchy is under threat. The response? A Hindu renaissance begins to take shape. This is where things get murky. Some historians argue the inclusion of Buddha as Vishnu's avatar wasn't a gesture of respect, but a calculated move in a high-stakes religious chess game. The goal? To neutralize the Buddhist threat by claiming its founder as their own. By portraying Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu, Hindu leaders could argue that Buddhism wasn't a separate religion at all. It was Hinduism all along. It's a brilliant strategy. It allows them to acknowledge Buddha's undeniable impact while simultaneously undercutting Buddhism's distinct identity. But here's the kicker. This tactic might have backfired. Instead of weakening Buddhism, it may have contributed to its decline in India. Why follow Buddha's teachings when you can worship him directly as Vishnu? It's a twist worthy of a historical thriller. Consider the case of Bodh Gaya, Buddhism's holiest site. Over centuries, it was gradually absorbed into Hindu worship, with a Shaivite monastery established there. It wasn't until the 19th century that Buddhists, supported by British archaeologists, reclaimed it as a Buddhist site. This perspective transforms our understanding of the controversy. It's not a theological debate. It's the aftershock of an ancient culture war. The Avatar claim becomes less about spiritual truth and more about religious politics and power struggles. Of course, this interpretation is hotly debated. Some see it as an overly cynical view of a complex historical process. Others argue it's a necessary correction to sanitized versions of religious history. Either way, it adds a layer of intrigue to our story. The question isn't, was Buddha an avatar of Vishnu? It's, why would anyone claim he was? And suddenly, we're not talking about ancient mythology. We're talking about the raw, real-world forces that shape religious traditions. It's time for the main event, the Evidence Showdown. Both sides are bringing their A-game, armed with ancient texts, philosophical arguments, and historical analysis. Let's break it down. In the Hindu corner, we have the heavy hitters. The Bhagavata Purana explicitly lists Buddha as the ninth avatar of Vishnu. The Gita Govinda, a 12th century text, echoes this claim. The Gita Govinda by Jayadeva proclaims, O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of Buddha. All glory to you, O Buddha of compassionate heart. You decry the slaughter of poor animals performed according to the rules of Vedic sacrifice. These aren't obscure writings. They're foundational texts for millions of Hindus. Hindu scholars also point to philosophical parallels. Buddha's emphasis on compassion. They argue it's a reflection of Vishnu's role as the preserver. The Buddhist concept of nirvana. They draw comparisons to the Hindu idea of moksha. It's a tapestry of connections that, at first glance, seems compelling. But the Buddhist camp isn't backing down. They're wielding the Pali Canon, the earliest Buddhist texts, which make no mention of Vishnu or avatars. Instead, these writings present Buddha as a human teacher who rejected the very idea of creator gods. Buddhists also bring linguistic evidence to the table. They argue the Sanskrit word avatara doesn't appear in early Buddhist literature. Its later use in some Buddhist texts, they claim, was metaphorical, not literal. The plot thickens when we look at timing. The earliest clear references to Buddha as Vishnu's avatar date back to the Gupta period, centuries after Buddha's time. Buddhists argue this gap exposes the avatar claim as a later invention, not an original truth. Art history throws another curveball into the mix. Early Buddhist art doesn't depict Buddha as a deity. It's only in later centuries that we see Buddha-like figures incorporated into Hindu iconography. Is this evidence of assimilation or appropriation? Archaeological findings muddy the waters further. Buddhist stupas repurposed as Hindu temples. Buddha statues with Hindu features added later. At the Ellora caves in Maharashtra, you can see this controversy literally carved in stone. Cave 10 features a Buddha figure, while neighboring caves depict Hindu deities. Some scholars argue that the similarities in artistic style suggest a deliberate attempt to incorporate Buddhist imagery into Hindu contexts. These sites become battlegrounds for competing historical narratives. As the evidence piles up, it becomes clear. This isn't a simple case of right versus wrong. It's a clash of worldviews, each supported by its own body of evidence. The question isn't who has more proof. It's how do we interpret the proof we have? And trust me, this evidence showdown is far from over. With each new archaeological discovery, Each reinterpretation of ancient texts, the debate evolves. It's a living controversy, as dynamic today as it was centuries ago. This ancient controversy hasn't gathered dust in libraries. It's erupted into a full-blown modern-day religious war, playing out in courtrooms, on social media, and at sacred sites across India. In 2013, the Bodh Gaya temple complex, Buddhism's holiest site, became a flashpoint. A series of bomb blasts rocked the area, bringing simmering tensions to the surface. While the perpetrators' motives were complex, the incident highlighted the fragile state of Hindu-Buddhist relations in India. The battleground has shifted to the digital realm too. Hindu nationalists flood social media with claims about Buddha's Hindu origins. Buddhist activists counter with hashtag campaigns asserting their founder's distinct identity. In 2015, a Twitter storm erupted when a prominent Hindu leader tweeted that Buddha was a Hindu reformer. The hashtag Buddha was not Hindu trended for days, with Buddhists worldwide sharing quotes and historical facts to counter the claim. It's a meme war with profound implications for religious identity. Legal battles rage over control of ancient Buddhist sites. The case of Sarnath, where Buddha gave his first sermon, saw Buddhists fighting for greater control over the site's management. These aren't just squabbles over real estate. They're struggles for historical legitimacy. Political leaders have entered the fray. In 2015, India's Prime Minister raised eyebrows by gifting a Buddha statue to a Hindu temple in Mongolia. Was it a gesture of interfaith harmony, or a subtle assertion of the avatar claim? The debate raged for weeks. Educational curricula have become another battleground. Controversies erupt over how Buddha's relationship to Hinduism is presented in textbooks. Each side accuses the other of trying to rewrite history to fit their narrative. Even international relations feel the heat of this controversy. When Chinese officials claim Buddha was born in Nepal, it's not seen as a mere geographical dispute. It's perceived as an attempt to distance Buddha from his Indian, and potentially Hindu, roots. The Dalai Lama, typically a voice for interfaith harmony, has been drawn into the debate. The Dalai Lama once remarked, "Buddha was born as an Indian. Buddhism is part of Indian culture. There's some problem in the interpretation." His nuanced statements on Buddha's Hindu connections have been seized upon by both sides, demonstrating how even calls for unity can become ammunition in this ideological war. This isn't some academic debate confined to ivory towers. It's a living, breathing conflict, reshaping the religious landscape of South Asia. The questions raised by those ancient texts are being answered in today's headlines, protests, and policy decisions. And with every tweet, every court case, every political speech, the stakes only get higher. Now brace yourselves for the mother of all plot twists. What if this entire controversy is based on a colossal misunderstanding? What if, instead of Buddha being an avatar of Vishnu, it was Vishnu who was influenced by Buddha? Let's rewind the clock. The earliest clear references to Buddha as Vishnu's avatar appear centuries after Buddha's death. But here's the kicker. They also come after Buddhism had already made a significant impact across India. Some scholars argue that as Buddhism gained popularity, it influenced Hinduism profoundly. As religious scholar Wendy Doniger notes in her book, The Hindus, Hinduism has no single founder, no single scripture, and no commonly agreed set of teachings. Throughout its long history, it has woven together many separate threads of belief and practice, including some that were originally part of other traditions, such as Buddhism. The concept of ahimsa, or non-violence, it gained prominence in Hinduism after Buddha's time. The idea of a compassionate God incarnating to teach Dharma, it bears a striking resemblance to the Buddhist concept of the Bodhisattva. Here's where it gets wild. What if the story of Vishnu's avatars, as we know it today, was shaped by Buddhist ideas? What if, in an ironic twist, the claim of Buddha as Vishnu's avatar was itself influenced by Buddhist concepts? This theory turns the entire debate on its head. It suggests that rather than Hinduism absorbing Buddhism, Buddhism may have transformed Hinduism at a fundamental level. The avatar of Vishnu, who renounces violence and teaches compassion, he might owe more to Buddha than we've ever realized, but it doesn't stop there. Some researchers point out that the worship of Vishnu rose to prominence during the same period when Buddhism was at its peak in India. Could this be mere coincidence, or evidence of Buddhist influence on Vishnu's cult? Look at the evolution of the god Vishnu himself. In early Vedic texts, he's a minor solar deity. But by the time of the Bhagavad Gita, he's a supreme god who incarnates to teach Dharma, a concept strikingly similar to the Buddhist idea of the Bodhisattva. This perspective doesn't just challenge the avatar claim, it rewrites the entire history of Hindu-Buddhist interactions. It transforms our understanding of how these two great traditions shaped each other. Of course, this theory is hotly debated. Hindu scholars argue it downplays the antiquity and continuity of Hindu traditions. Some Buddhists worry it might undermine the uniqueness of Buddha's teachings. But if true, it would be the ultimate irony. The very claim meant to subsume Buddhism into Hinduism might itself be evidence of Buddhism's profound impact on Hindu thought. It's not just a plot twist. It's a paradigm shift that forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the history of Eastern religion. The fallout from this controversy shatters our understanding of Eastern spirituality. It forces us to confront mind-bending implications that reach far beyond academia or theology. Consider this. If Buddha was indeed Vishnu's avatar, it would mean Buddhism isn't a separate religion, but a branch of Hinduism. This would reshape the spiritual landscape of Asia overnight. Billions of Buddhists worldwide would have to grapple with an identity crisis of cosmic proportions. On the flip side, if Vishnu's avatar concept was influenced by Buddhism, it would mean Hinduism as we know it today owes a massive debt to the very tradition it claims to have spawned. It would be like finding out your parents were secretly your children all along. But the implications go deeper. This controversy challenges our very notion of religious boundaries. If two of the world's major religions are this intertwined, can we truly draw clear lines between any faiths? It raises profound questions about the nature of spiritual truth. Can contradictory beliefs both be true in some sense? Or does the truth of one tradition necessarily negate the other? The political ramifications are explosive. In India, where religious identity often intertwines with politics, this debate could reshape power structures and social hierarchies. It could fuel movements for religious reform or spark reactionary backlashes. For interfaith dialogue, this controversy is both a challenge and an opportunity. It demonstrates the pitfalls of simplistic attempts at religious harmony, but it also reveals the deep, often surprising connections between traditions that seem opposed. On a personal level, it forces believers to confront uncomfortable questions. What does it mean to follow a spiritual path if its origins are uncertain? How much does historical truth matter in matters of faith? For scholars, this debate opens new avenues of research. It demands a reevaluation of ancient texts, a reinterpretation of archaeological evidence, and a new approach to understanding religious evolution. Ultimately, this controversy does more than rewrite religious history. It challenges us to rethink the very nature of religion itself. It suggests that our spiritual traditions aren't fixed, unchanging entities, but dynamic, interacting, and evolving systems of thought. In the end, whether Buddha was Vishnu's avatar or Vishnu was influenced by Buddha, one thing is clear. The relationship between Hinduism and Buddhism is far more complex, far more intimate, and far more mind-bending than we ever imagined. As we wrap up this mind-bending journey, let's drop one final truth bomb. The beauty of this controversy lies not in picking a side, but in recognizing the intricate dance between these two profound traditions. Remember, at its core, Buddhism teaches the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, its cause, its end, and the path to its end. The Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, taught a middle way between indulgence and asceticism, He emphasized personal responsibility, ethical conduct, and the cultivation of wisdom and compassion. Whether or not Buddha was an avatar of Vishnu doesn't change the essence of his teachings. The Eightfold Path, the concept of nirvana, the emphasis on mindfulness and meditation, these remain powerful tools for personal transformation, regardless of their historical origins. This controversy reminds us that religion isn't a fixed set of beliefs, but a living, breathing entity that evolves over time. It shows us that spiritual truths can transcend the boundaries we try to draw around them. So here's my challenge to you. Don't simply accept or reject the avatar claim. Instead, use this controversy as a springboard for deeper exploration. Dive into the teachings of Buddha. Examine the philosophy of Hinduism. Look for the common threads that bind these traditions together and the unique insights each offers. Question your assumptions. Challenge your beliefs. But above all, remember that the ultimate goal of both Buddhism and Hinduism is to alleviate suffering and achieve a higher state of being. How you get there is less important than the journey itself. If this video has sparked your curiosity, don't stop here. Read the original texts. Talk to practitioners of both faiths. Visit temples and monasteries. Experience these traditions firsthand. And hey, while you're on this journey of discovery, why not bring others along? Share this video, start conversations, spark debates. The more we discuss these ideas, the closer we get to understanding not just Buddhism and Hinduism, but the very nature of spirituality itself. Remember, in the words often attributed to Buddha, do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it, but after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to the good and benefit of one and all, then accept it and live up to it. So what do you think? Is Buddha an avatar of Vishnu? Is Vishnu influenced by Buddha? Or is the truth something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos that challenge your perception of religion, spirituality, and everything in between. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep growing.